Welcome to Rokk Around the Clock, bite-sized Google Stadia news and information. In today's show, Google shuts down Stadia games and entertainment, FIFA 21 finally headed to Stadia, SEGA Judgment Day, my final thoughts. Late yesterday, a memo penned by Phil Harrison announced that Stadia Games and Entertainment, with studios in Montreal and Los Angeles, has been closed, ending any further development on exclusive titles under the Stadia brand. Jade Raymond, who headed up the division and was drafted in from Sony, has also left to pursue other opportunities. The remaining 150 staff will be supported to find alternative roles, although whether within Google or not was not stated. Harrison also made several mentions of wanting to work with third-party developers and external industry partners to utilize the Stadia cloud-based game streaming technology, while underlining their ongoing support for existing and future Stadia and Stadia Pro players to play their games. More on what this could mean moving forward is covered at the end of this video. As mentioned here before, FIFA is one of those titles considered a must-have for any platform to be taken seriously, and its absence from the Stadia library, despite being promised some time ago, has been a constant source of anguish for players. Today, however, we finally got a release date for FIFA 21 coming to Stadia, which is March the 17th. Pricing for this game has not been released at this point, but is expected to be reduced, given the point in the sporting season for its release. Another surprise announcement today came from SEGA, who tweeted that the Criminal Underground-centered classic Judgment is being uprated and remastered for next-gen consoles, and its release on April 23rd will also include Google Stadia. Whether the new next-gen features will also make it across are unknown at this point. Yesterday, on any level, was a grey day. Whether you are a half-full or half-empty person, we can't get away from the fact that things have now changed. Stadia is no longer a competitor to PCs, Xbox or PlayStation, whether it ever was or we believed it to be the case. The memo from Phil Harrison's office was clear. Stadia's ambitions to be a game content creator have been curtailed. Now let's be clear, this does not extend to Stadia, the technology, that is. It offers an amazing, almost magical solution to streaming games from the cloud, and we all know that cloud gaming is most definitely the future. But the promise of exclusive games and a dedicated consumer platform that offers a real alternative to the hardware giants has definitely been put to rest. At what point in time this decision was made, or for what reasons, we may never know, but it represents a big change to the future of Google Stadia. Arguably, the very first pitch for Stadia was to the gaming industry, and this latest message was to them also. That is very much where Google believes it can get its greatest return. Cyberpunk was a watershed for Stadia, showing how polished the technology is, and thanks to monumental management issues at CDPR, outshining the version playable across the majority of consoles too. But let's be frank here, did that lead to an increase in subscriptions? Or did it, partly thanks to the lure of a free controller, simply lead to increased game sales? Of course, the bundled Premier Pack did come with a free period of Pro if the user chose to invoke it. But whether sufficient numbers did or not may have been a contributing factor to the final decision. So what does this mean for Stadia in real terms and for this dedicated Stadia channel? Well, from here on in, this is speculation. But I believe that Stadia was always in a two-horse race. The key driver was to provide a cloud gaming service that could be harnessed within the games industry, and in fact that specific service has always been on offer within their cloud-based hosting services if you chose to look for it. The other horse, perhaps the outsider, was to see if they could create a legitimate consumer-focused cloud gaming platform to rival traditional consoles. Investment in either, of course, benefited the other, although the latter required huge amounts of content and preferably some of their own to really show off the technology. So far so good, but while exclusive content was being created, it needed big titles to pull in the crowds. There was an issue, however. In order to be a truly unique service, they chose to create a technology stack that was alien to most game developers, thus making it a major investment decision to port titles, and ultimately slowed down growth. This was countered by cash deals that we're aware of and providing expertise to assist in the porting process, but it was still a risk for many, possibly too many. In the longer term, this would all have gone away, as long as the consumer-based cloud platform could build a significant audience. It almost certainly didn't. I still firmly believe that things would have turned over time, albeit with some tweaks to the original business model, and so it's a huge shame that the stomach wasn't there for the longer game. That said, we don't have access to the data that these guys have been looking at, and some very experienced people made some very hard choices. So where do we go from here? Well, in the short term, Stadia Pro will continue as is. Contracts are in place for pro games for the next few months, and although Google could pay those off, it doesn't make sense as the platform and subscribers are still there for the minute and need to be supported. $10 a month is still a chunk to commit to, however, especially when most of the subscriber base do have alternative options. And so I believe that the Pro subscription will eventually disappear in favor of what differentiates it today: 4K, 60 frames per second, high definition, resolution, 5.1 audio. Those will become the de facto across the board for the free option as long as you purchase games. The store will continue to exist too, although specializing as a showcase for independent studios, with the larger studios instead looking to the technology to power their own cloud options. Why give up 30% of your margin to Google when you can pay less to offer the game under your own Stadia-powered cloud solution? The features that are unique to Stadia will stay, as well as part of Stadia's USP for developers. So who will be running all of this now? A job ad that was featured yesterday on cloudywithachanceofgames.com may provide the clue. It was from YouTube, looking for someone to head up game experience project management. No doubt we'll be seeing more like this, with many of the 150 SG&E staff just having a brand change to their paychecks. So the technology itself will continue to be handled by the Google Cloud team, and potentially the consumer end by the streaming giant of YouTube. So my advice? Stick with it for the ride if you can afford it. I believe there will be incentives and opportunities for people who do, but it may not be until the dust has settled. What about my channel? Well, I am fully committed to being a Stadia first channel because I'm still passionate about the possibilities of Google's technology and cloud gaming. This daily news show will have to change, however. For breaking news, perhaps ad hoc news for certain. However, as I suspect that news will be thin on the ground for the next couple of months, it has to take a break. But my other weekly shows, Stadia Live with Rokk and Ray, Rockstars at Night, and Cloudburst, will continue, with new shows on the horizon. So, like Stadia, I'm not planning on going anywhere for now. I'll be around for as long as you guys turn up to watch my stuff and believe in what I do. I will need to put my creative hat on to make sure that I evolve with the audience, of course, but that's what I've always done. So, for the meantime, and just for the meantime, rock out. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss out on the latest Stadia news. If you'd like to support my content, please consider joining Team Rokk by hitting the join button on this page.